So the very first counseling meeting that I went to, of course, you can imagine sitting there sobbing. She said, Mary Kay, we have a couple of really important rules. The first one is don't, let me review, don't tell anyone where this is. It's a safe haven. It could endanger women's lives. And I promised them I would not do that. And the second one was you may not talk about him for the next 4 weeks. You may not so much as mention his name. Do you understand? And I was so, brain fogged already because of all my emotions. But I said, excuse me, what are we going to talk about?
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah, and feel free to chuckle about that one. It was an incredibly naive question because I really thought, as almost all women in that situation do, that he was the problem, and once I got rid of him, everything would be fine, right? And so she said, we're going to talk about you, MK. We're going to talk about you because we believe that it's your choices that brought you here. So at this point, sometimes my listeners or my readers get a little jolted by that statement that it was my choice, right? It's, I've heard people say there are no victims, only volunteers. Well, certainly that's not true for children at all, right? But as we grow into adults, one of the hard things that I had to face was I had a lot of guys asking me out in my 20s. And a lot of my girlfriends are married to them and have been for 35 years, happily, right? Good guys. Why did I choose to date and marry this one, right? So I was truly looking for someone who, and many people listening I'm sure know the answer to this question, who treated me as my mother was treated by my father, and who treated me as I believed I deserved to be treated. So when we are treated better than we believe we deserve, we self-sabotage. We find a way out. And obviously the big part of my recovery has been realizing that I am enough, that I do deserve love and the best of everything in life. We all do. But at that time I was at a very unhealthy place.
Did you have a particular moment while you were there that it suddenly all sort of slotted into place?
I think one of the ones that comes up, it's a great question, is I was out on the playground playing with the kids, and a priest came over from the archdiocesan office, which wasn't too far away, and he said, "Oh, MK, hi." And I said, "Hi," and he said, "This is nice of you to volunteer at the shelter." Because I was on major commissions for the archdiocese. I was a very active participant in my faith and in the diocese in general, and I said, "Father, I'm here as a client. I am here because I am the recipient of domestic violence." And he just could not talk or move. So again, I think we need to be watching for signs with friends of ours and even family members who we least suspect might be in this situation, right? There were signs that a couple of my friends started to pick up on. That I stopped laughing, that I was sad a lot, that I was isolating more, that I seemed depressed a lot. So there were signs, but of course it was my responsibility to tell someone, and I wasn't very good at that.
Can I ask you a question? You got this test result back from your marriage coaching thing. Did that make you even question? The priest said, "Oh, this is all wrong because we know you're the perfect couple. Your marriage is made in heaven." Did it tweak anything with you? I know it did later, but obviously at the time?
I certainly can't judge anyone because I was so caught up in the lie, in the external looking good part of the marriage, that I can imagine other people were too. I was in complete self-delusion. And again, I have a really nice smile. I had an orthodontist for a father, and by golly, I've got good teeth, and I could, when I smiled, everybody goes, "Oh, you're so happy," and I can tell you're so happy. But there's a smile that kind of stops right below the eyes, And if you look closely, you can tell more about people's happiness by their eyes than by their mouth. And a good friend of mine told me that later after I got out of the shelter, she said, "Oh, your eyes are smiling now." And so that was interesting. Let me just tell you a little bit more about the lessons that I learned there, because I think there were two more, Sue.
Okay.
One was, remember the mandate not to talk about him, right? The other 6 women talked about their spouses and boyfriends every chance they got. In other words, as soon as the counselor walked out of the room, they would be talking about that again. The very first time it happened, I said, "Guys, do you remember what they told us? Didn't they tell you the rule?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, whatever." And I said, "So you think you know more than the counselors how to get healthy? Okay, well, I'm out of here." And so every break I would excuse myself out of the room and then come back in when the counselor did. One of the things that I shared in my talks over the next few years was how many of the women there were 7 of us total, do you think went back to domestic violence relationships?
6.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't follow the rules.
Well, they really weren't willing to accept responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, that again, I have an 8-step process now I teach in my 8 to Great book and also in the Taking Care of Me book that both talk about full responsibility, right? I am responsible. And being coachable is a huge part of being happy, healthy, and successful in life. I truly believe. Now, I believe we're coached by our bosses at work. Obviously, we don't always agree with them. We don't always want to take their coaching, which is fine. You can leave the job. But if you have a decent, moral, ethical, and kind boss, which I hope we all do, then being coachable under their guidance is, to me, a huge part of maturity. But it's not just bosses. It could be a sports coach. It could be a pastor. It could be a counselor. I had 3 fantastic counselors over the years. So obviously that was when I was 34. Now I'm 64, so we've got 30 years. And over those years, I've had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years with a counselor, always women. And I truly recommend always finding someone of your gender for your counselor, who were just so phenomenal. But they didn't let me cut any corners. They didn't.
Right.
They weren't easy on me. I would never want a counselor who just sat there and said, "Okay, well, thank you for sharing," and then sent me home. These were women who gave me homework, who held my feet to the fire, who said, "Are you ready to change, or you just want to stay in your old your old patterns, Mary Kay?"
Absolutely. I have to jump in here. We have less than 5 minutes to go. Okay. So I think you've got one more point that you wanted to make about the rules they made.
Yes, and that is that when I left, the woman said, I just was sobbing because I was so grateful for everything that had happened, everything I'd learned at the shelter, and that I had really realized that it was me, and that if I had made this big a mess in my life, guess what? I could make, wonderful things in my life, that I truly had power. Mm-hmm. They had a monthly gathering which was not enough, by the way, but they had a monthly gathering for people who'd been through the shelter, and I went 6 months in a row, and I was always the only person there. So, and those were for everybody who was an alumni of the program, every group of women who'd passed through. In other words, no one really was doing what they were coached to do, which again saddens me, because we just have to be coachable if we're going to make the changes we need to make. But
absolutely. I'm going to have to sort of get you to give some contact information, because we're now got less than 2 minutes. So there's 2 parts to the show. The second part is the wondrous work that you're doing now. But please give your contact details, so where people can find you. They may have issues with regard to going through abuse, and maybe you can point them in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, there are domestic hotlines nationally and locally all over the world. So first of all, always Google that, or call 911, and they'll get you there. So I would not be your first contact in an emergency situation.
Right.
But I do encourage people to get both codependence counselors. There are codependence groups like CODA and Al-Anon that are part of the 12-step program, but there are many wonderful programs. And certainly they're free to email me at info@8togreat.com. That's IN as in Nancy, F as in farm, O, INFO at the number 8 to great. That's 8togreat.com. Our website is 8togreat.com. We have people that we not only coach in this material, but we train and certified coaches. And Sue, I'm so proud to have you as one of those certified coaches.
Thank you.
Yes, we have 2,700 on 4 continents at this point, so I'll be talking about that in the next show. We have a Facebook page. I love to connect with people on Facebook. It's just MK Mueller, Mueller. And the last thing I wanted to share was, as I was leaving, I said to the counselor, "How can I ever thank you?" And she said, "Maybe you will share the message." So again, listen for those little angels that are whispering in your ear, giving you, your next steps. Thank you so much, Sue.
Thank you very, very much, MK. It's been a joy talking to you, and I know that so many people face the challenges that you have faced, and you will be a light to them. So if you have any questions or comments or would like to know about a guest on my show, please contact me at overtheedgesue@gmail.com. That's over the edge with 2 E's in the middle. It looks very strange, but it's right. And one thing that I say as I close every show is, please do not judge others unless you can walk in their shoes, for you have no idea what has brought them to the place that they're now in. Thank you, MK. I am looking forward to part 2.
Wonderful. Thank you.